It's Ron Jackson, and I have Mr. Aaron Shapiro as a special guest, but we're going to do a little intro for you right now. Here we go. All right, we're here. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? It's Aaron Shapiro, my special guest on Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson. So I kind of like that title because Aaron used to be one of my students here in New York, actually in the Jersey area here. But he lived in. Where did you live in New York, Aaron? Actually, when you were living here?
I lived a little, I moved around a lot in the course of that 1 year. I spent a little time in like Washington Heights, a little time kind of near Inwood, and then during the last few months I was staying like right in Midtown near Columbus Circle. So I
Oh,
moved around
nice.
a lot during that short time.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was I gonna say? So you're from? Are you from Chicago originally?
Chicagoland area. So I was born in Highland Park, born and raised in Highland Park, which is about half hour drive north of the city. And so I had access to the blues and the jazz scene from a pretty young age and started gigging from a pretty young age. Just, as soon as I could drive, basically, I was going into the city a bunch and playing gigs. So, yeah, just a kind of a quiet suburb
Oh,
outside of Chicago.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
You know, um, I met Aaron. You actually found me in on a gig in Brooklyn, I think, at the time. No.
Yes. You were playing it in in a park somewhere with Organ Monk. Uh,
Yeah, I remember
forgetting his,
now.
forgetting his George, right? Something. Forget his name. Great organ player, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny because yeah, that was a great little gig actually because I remember you came up after you started talking to me. You said, "Did you ask for my card or something?" I don't remember what happened exactly.
I don't know. I might have found you online or something through your website after that, I think. Um, but yeah, not long after that,
Well,
I enjoyed
that's
what I
really
heard.
interesting. So
Yeah.
you contacted me about taking lessons, and
Yeah.
then so I wonder what I wonder what I was wondering why you wanted to take lessons with me particularly.
Oh.
That's
Um,
yeah,
I think I just like the energy in your playing a lot. I
really.
I was digging the solos and the comping that I heard, and yeah, was just looking for someone new to study with at the time. And uh, also, I was starting to get heavier into like the organ trio style type of playing at the time, so I know I wanted to study with someone who did that a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny because it was so you started coming over to my place and taking lessons with me, and I was wondering because I thought you were a good player already, so I was wondering why you wanted to stay with me, which I thought was really interesting. You know what I mean?
I learned some more,
You know,
and just yeah, refine it, just uh I mean, I always came up reading music notation, but I really wanted to get sharper with that and then just expanding repertoire,
hmm.
just like learning more standards, solo guitar arrangements. So we hit on a bunch of stuff in that time.
Yeah, what I liked about Aaron, he really helped me actually develop like a method, some of my methods. I mean, write them out like because you would ask me all these things like, what do I practice? I want to be specific. You were very specific about what you want to practice, what you want to get out of a lesson. You know, and I wonder if I want to ask you a question. Why did you? What age did you start playing guitar? And then why
Yeah,
did you start playing guitar?
sure. So I was I think around 5.5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom signed me up for lessons. I think she could tell I was very enthusiastic about music from even younger than that. I was watching like Beatles and Rolling Stones videos around the
Yeah.
house quite a bit, and just like banging on pots and pans and things like that. And I had like a toy guitar that I played. Um, and there's a music school called the Chris Laughlin School of Music, which is still around. Christopher Laughlin is a great classical guitar teacher and player here in the North Chicago area. And I started studying with him, and I started on like classical technique from
Oh
that
wow.
pretty young age, and he was getting me right into reading notation pretty much from the get-go. We didn't
Wow.
do any tabs. It was all like he was like, as soon as you learn how to read English, as soon as you can read books, then you can come back and start studying with me. Then we'll learn music notation.
Oh
And it
wow.
was just, single note lines at the time for a couple years. And he would put stickers on my guitar, and so I knew where the notes were on the fretboard and could kind of associate that with where it was written on the staff. And then I think at that young of an age, I couldn't really appreciate classical guitar music fully. That came back around much later, even in the past 3 or 4 years. But it was a good foundation to start with. That's for
So
sure.
you were exactly what age again?
I think I was five and a half.
Wow. You
Yeah,
started
super
guitar
young.
much younger than me, actually. That's
Yeah, it's
great. That's
younger than most people. But like as a kid, it's like you have all these other interests. So I definitely like dropped it for baseball and basketball and stuff, and I always kind of came back to it.
so. Yeah. Because I saw some. You know what? I actually saw some videos or something about you on like when you were a kid, like a classical, or I read something about you in
Oh,
Chicago.
really?
Yeah. Were you kind of like a little bit known about as a kid in Chicago?
Um, not so much when I was really young. I think kind of by the time I was in my junior or senior year of high school, I was getting known more because I was playing in some of like the national like high school, all not like all state or all country. I did like the Grammy Jazz Ensemble,
Oh
and then
wow!
they
I
had
didn't
this
know that.
other one. Yeah, I was in that. Yeah, my senior year in high school. And then the year before that, they had this other one called Jazz Band of America, which was kind of like a smaller version of that was in Indianapolis. So I
Wow.
did both of those. And that, I think, I got to meet a lot of great players from across the country in the same age group who had this similar niche interest in jazz. So that was like, if you've heard of Patrick Bartley, like I knew him since I was in high
Who? I don't know
school.
him. Who's he?
He's a great alto player. Went to Juilliard, and I think he's actually moved to Japan since then. But he's on a lot of like Emmett Cohen's his web series that he does. Really amazing alto player,
Oh
and a
wow.
bunch of other guys. Evan Sherman I met from really young.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that's kind of when I think more people around the country started to hear, you get just attention from people in other states and the jazz community. So it was possible it was from around that time.
So
Um,
so you were
yeah.
around 17, 18 this time. You said.
Yes. Yeah. 17, 18. I actually did a lot of, up until that point, kind of from age like 14 to age 17, I got pretty serious into like orchestral percussion and
Really?
like marching band percussion. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I went to that camp called Interlaken, and I did orchestral
You know, it's
percussion
really
there.
funny. I didn't know you did all this stuff because you just took
Yeah.
lessons with me.
Right. Well, no, I'm glad we're doing this now, so I can share a bit. But I
Yeah. So
was,
I mean,
yeah,
so did you because so you went to college. I mean, you went to high school. Then where did you go to school? Did you go to school for music?
I went to DePaul. They do have a good music school, and I didn't get my major in music, but I did study with Mark Maxwell, who's the classical guitar teacher at DePaul, pretty much that whole time. We did private lessons,
Wow.
and I studied with jazz guitar teachers outside of DePaul, and I was already gigging quite a bit by that time. We were just talking before about how you dropped out of Berkeley, and I'm like, yeah, I want to like meet other people who have just different interests than me, and not be consumed with the music conservatory bubble and
Oh,
still study with
the
great.
reason why I dropped out
Yeah,
is because I was actually burnt.
you were burnt. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's different reason, but that's also very understandable.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
I
I was actually stressed out and burnt. I had a
Yeah.
scholarship there, and I started doing a lot of concerts at the
Okay.
time, and and these concerts would be packed, and I had severe stage fright.
Oh, okay.
And it
Sure.
was crazy, man. I'd be like
Yeah.
shaking on stage, and I have these full recital halls. I started playing at the performance center with my band. I was about 19 already. I was like freaking out, man. I
Sure.
just left. I went to Paris actually. I moved to Paris,
Oh, okay. Right.
and
I
then I
do
came
remember
back
you
to New
lived there
York
for a
after a
bit.
few years later.
Yeah, right. I remember you saying you lived there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Um,
so while everybody's watching, I actually got everybody finally on Instagram because it took me a while. The stream key was all messed up. Thank you everybody for watching. So we have our special guest today, Mr. Aaron Shapiro, who hails from the great city of Chicago, and he was a student of mine. Right before the pandemic. Actually up until the pandemic, and then we stopped, and you moved. How did that happen? Actually,
yeah, I moved kind of right after the pandemic started, and it was just like the type of thing where it was that year and a half period where like very few gigs were happening, and definitely not in the way they used to be. And just with the price and the cost of living in New York, I'm
yeah,
just like, I need to like go back to Chicago, reset,
yeah.
and like get.
Everybody had that problem.
Yeah, it was right. So
Yeah,
it ended up being the right move for me for several reasons. But
yeah,
yeah, I think we all had that kind of period of a year or so of just like, what's
yeah.
going on? What's the future of music going to look like? And then by the time live music and concerts and venues kind of came back, I was pretty.
Yeah.
I definitely got back in the scene pretty quickly here.
Oh,
So
good, good. Yeah,
yeah.
so I want to give a shout out to one of my fans, and he's watching right now. He's always watching. Let's give a hand for Jeffrey Boyle from Philadelphia watching. I'm showing his comment on top here. Thanks, Jeffrey, for watching. You know, and Jeffrey's a big fan, and I'd like to give him a big shout out. And if anybody has any questions or comments for us on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, we're streaming to all three places. Please ask us a question. Oh yeah, someone has a question. Micah Bell says we love you. So Aaron, you have some people who love you already. So Aaron, before we keep going, please
Yeah.
tell people where they could follow you, etc.
Sure. So if you want to, well, you can follow me on Instagram. That's where
What's
everyone's.
your
It's
Instagram name?
it's just Aaron B Shapiro, or I think Aaron.B.Shapiro. So on Instagram, you can find me there. Facebook, it's the same tag. Also, check out my website if you want to just learn more about me, hear some of my music, and see where I'm performing. That's AaronShapiroMusic.com.
Yeah. So let's actually. So Aaron, let's. Would you like to play us a song? I'm going to show them all the stuff I showed you. I'm just kidding. No.
So,
Yeah. Would you like to play us a song? We'd love to hear you. So
sure.
what do you like to play?
I don't know. I mean, I could play a tune of mine, or I can do a standard,
Do
whatever.
whatever you feel.
Okay.
So we're gonna have Aaron play a song. We're gonna turn our mics down while he's doing that. And
Yeah.
so here's Aaron Shapiro, great guitar player from Chicago, young guitar player. So here we go. I'm gonna turn my mic down. Go ahead, Aaron. Turn yours down too. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. I'll do an original tune called Everything. Let's turn the mic down.
Yeah. Aaron, you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just turning my mic back up.
Oh, good, good.
Is that all right? You can hear
Yeah,
me
yeah,
now?
yeah. No, it's funny because we tested it before. It was a little distorted. Now I don't know why, but I can't
Yeah.
figure why that happens. After testing
Oh,
the guitar,
yeah.
but
Did
that's
it
fine.
sound distorted again?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh, oh, bummer. Okay.
I know
Well,
that's okay though. You sounded great though. You saw. Here's a great comment from Barryman. Barryman Manilow? No, Barryman
sounds great though. All right.
Barfay Man 362. Yeah, it's hard. Like I've been working on this for a while. Everybody, trying to get a good sound. And the only thing that really worked, just so you know, everybody, when you're streaming live, and for you, Aaron, to know too, is if you're gonna go live, it's better to go on you're on your computer, yes.
Yep.
Is to put a direct line into your computer, like get like a, um, you know, um, an Ethernet cable with an
Oh,
adapter.
director. Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
to go direct into the internet because it's really hard to get a good signal. But you know what's been really good recently? I got an iPhone 15, and I've been going live off the phone. It's been pretty good sound. Actually, it's kind of weird. I wouldn't think so,
Yeah.
but it takes a lot. It takes a while to get this sound together. But this is the first time you really. I don't know if you've done a podcast before live like this playing, but
Not playing, and it's
yeah.
also I can't quite hear myself from the other end, so which makes it tough. But
Oh,
um,
yeah. That's why I have headphones on. But I can't hear myself the other side either.
right, that's what I'm saying. It makes it tough that
What
way.
what I
But
usually do is I record, then play it
I
back to
record
see.
for
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
before we do a performance. So this is a good thing for everybody to learn about. Actually, when you're podcasting live, it's a good thing to talk about. You know what I mean? And so does anybody have any questions? Yeah. So my friend Jeffrey says to you, Aaron. Yes, still sounds good. Sounds great. You still sound great. He says. So you have some fans now, Aaron. So
All right.
follow Aaron everywhere. Everybody, please follow Aaron. Follow Aaron. Now let me see. There's some people watching right now on Instagram. There was a question. So someone asked us. This is a good question for you. You could answer this question, Aaron. So, so do we target chord tones when improvising on jazz, Aaron?
Do we target chord tones? I mean, if you want to, if that's the goal to get, I think it depends on the vibe that you're going for and the style that you're playing and the approach that you want to take. But sometimes it can be the more interesting choice to target what's outside of the chord tone and then go back into it.
Oh, I like that.
If we go for all chord tones all the time, we're kind of just playing arpeggiating the chords, and a lot of times it can be the most predictable choice. So only go for the chord tones, but I do think a lot as far as what the chord tones are of whatever context that I'm in, and sometimes the right choice is to go in it and to play right through the chord tones, and other times it feels right not to, and it's like this tension and release of
I
working
like the way
around
you
the chord
explain this. This
tones.
is good.
Yeah, so
Is it, because when I'm playing, when someone's asking me about chord tones, I think of approach notes or
yeah.
closures and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So you know, when let's say you're playing a B flat chord, it's gonna sound loud here because I have a mic. So I'm gonna go. I'm playing my 7 string anyway. So if I'm playing a B flat chord, like let's say B flat major, I can go. I can just do this half step approach to each chord. See that on the 7 string. But that's
Yeah.
just that's an approach. Those are approach notes, but
Hmm.
it's just an approach note is just an approach note. It's not. I don't think it's improvisation. That's the problem. So you got to make melodies with this stuff. So I would just make that. I would go. I would do some passing tones to get to those approach, etc. You understand? Um,
Yeah,
yeah. There's so many ways to do it. Actually, Aaron's saying too.
yeah. Also, it's like the idea of like what are you actually thinking about when it's good to always know what the chord tones are. You should always know that, and
Of
I think
course.
that's an important part of theory and just understanding what's going on behind you. But
Yeah.
can you really be thinking about that stuff all the time when you're soloing? It has to be something that's just like ingrained in you so you can reach this flow state of oh, like just being able to kind of express yourself over whatever palette is behind you. And
I
if you're
like it.
thinking too much over each individual chord, then it's going to disrupt your train of thought. So that
Yeah,
makes
that's a great. I like the way you explain that because I kind of I have this way of thinking about improvisation, and what happens is like when I teach students how to play changes, but the flow is when you're out. I teach like let's say someone's learning a Grant Green solo or George Benson solo. Some of my students want to go out and play the solo on the gig. I'm like, you don't. I say you really don't do that. What you do is
right.
you learn the solo, but when you go on the gig, you play. You don't like you react to the band. You try to play in time. You try to make sure you play the right changes. You try to. And there's so many factors to playing that if you're going on the bandstand to play someone else's solo, you're not really playing. You're just practicing, really on
Right.
stage. You know.
I yeah, I
Yeah.
hopefully there aren't too many people going out and doing I don't think there I think most people know that you should be improvising, but I think what's really important is to be influenced by those guys and to learn the devices that they use and kind of be able to implement them in your own way.
Yeah.
You know,
And the thing
without it
is,
being
yeah,
a
yeah.
without it being an exact replication of what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you basically learn and it becomes ingrained in you, and you don't think about it. You just play. It just
Hmm.
comes out, and you're playing naturally. But to me, I tell everybody it's through trial and error, really, because when I'm playing, I'm trying to make sure I play the right stuff, and then this sounds wrong, so then I say I'm not gonna do that next time. Trial and error, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? And then it becomes natural after a while when you start playing. It becomes a flow without even thinking
Yeah,
about it. You
right.
know?
Or you learn how to make the wrong stuff sound right. You
Yeah,
know, you
that's
play
true
with
too.
enough conviction, like
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
make a
You can
lot of
make
stuff
anything
sound right.
wrong sound right.
You're
You know,
right.
the stronger you play wrong, the better it sounds.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
or it's just like I think like you always got to have a good time feel. That seems to be really important.
of course.
Like playing with whatever style you're playing in, like really digging into the rhythmic
Yeah,
foundation of whatever that is. And then as far as, what notes you play, that's all kind of like context and like how
yeah,
much conviction you put into what you're playing. So, but you're
Well, this
right.
is,
There's more right and wrong sounding.
yeah, rhythm is the most important thing, too.
I think yeah.
Because you study drums, which is good. You know why? Because I didn't tell you this, Aaron, but during the pandemic, I actually started I started studying with a friend of mine who taught drums, and he made.
I think you did tell me that actually, and I really recommend it for guitarists. I mean, studying with different instrum instrumentalists, study with saxophone player, keyboard player, but especially drummers, to really.
Why? Tell me.
I think it's important to be able to feel music from their angle of the bandstand, and it also just makes us a stronger rhythmic players by studying percussion.
You know what really was interesting. So, well, first, there's a couple questions before we keep going.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so Gabriel Escobar, he's asking a question right now. He's asking, what's the best book to learn about harmony and chords? Now, that's a hard question. What's the best book to learn? I mean, there's so many books out
I'm
there.
looking at my bookshelf right now. I'm like, is there any that
I mean, I have like something behind this green screen here that's like full of books. You know
I
what's a good book
remember?
is I think it's a book by Mark Levine, the music theory book. I think it's called. It's a good book with all kinds of different stuff. Mark
Cool.
Levine passed
Yeah,
away recently, the piano player, and
you'd probably know better than I would as far as the literature, but
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, if you're a guitar player, there's a lot of stuff in the William Levitt books that I use. But don't get caught up
I
too much in those William Levitt books. I had one of my friends, who's like a really great guitar player, mentioned that a lot of guitar players who come out of Berkeley start sounding the same because they learn the same method. That's what he's saying, which was
sure.
interesting. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, you know.
Now I know Barry Harris talked a lot about that. He's like Mixolydian, Dorian, like what people just came up with those terms to make money at Berkeley. I'm like, I just saw a video of him today talking about that. I'm like, yeah, that's an
Yeah,
interesting point.
I used to go to his
But
classes all the time, actually. So
yeah,
I still
but
can't play that stuff.
I will say this about the question that Gabriel asked. I think I learned maybe the most about some interesting chord choices from playing classical guitar repertoire.
Hmm.
Those old guys, I mean, whether it's like Barrios or Villa-Lobos, like check out if you have any interest in classical guitar, those guys put some of the baddest chords in their music, and
Oh
it's
yeah, there's some
stuff
great
that,
stuff in those songs, man.
so that's worth checking out too.
There's another question here. What's been your favorite gig that you played?
Um, favorite
I don't
gig.
know who's
I mean,
asking, but
favorite gig that I've played. I like the Green Mill quite a bit. Andy's.
where's
There's a
that at?
club.
No one knows where that is.
Oh, it's a great club here in Chicago that's been around for like since the 1930s, I think,
Oh
20,
wow.
maybe even earlier than that. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think the Green Mill might be my favorite place in town to play.
I mean, my answer is any gig could be my favorite gig, actually.
Right,
More than anything.
I feel like the
Yeah.
gig sometimes. I mean, it always helps to have a great venue with good sound and all
Yes,
that, but a lot
exactly.
of that depends on like who you're on the bandstand with and the
Exactly.
music and all that stuff
Yeah.
more so than the venue. So
Yeah. Yeah. So let me put up while everybody's watching. I want to put up a public service announcement. And then we're going to continue. So we have our guest Aaron Shapiro. Please follow him everywhere at Aaron.B. Shapiro. I don't remember what is that again.
yep, Aaron.B.Shapiro.
And he's a great guitar player that I used to study with me here in the New York area. He used to study also with the great James Chirillo over here. Who else did you study with in the New York area?
I think that's it while I was there.
Oh, cool.
Along when I was this was before I moved there, but I did take a lesson with Lajay Lund. Is that how you say his name?
I guess I
Lajay
say that.
Lajay Lund.
Oh, nice.
Um, but but yeah, you two were the guys, and with James, we just that was a lot of theory
Wow.
based work,
Hmm.
which was good.
Oh, yeah.
It a lot of the time, yeah.
You know what? What I want to mention, I forgot to mention this when I studied with the drummer. The thing that made me more conscious about studying with my friend who played drums is that drummers, he had me counting notation. Like, let's say I'm reading uh, reading notes out of this book. Actually, this is a book I have actually. One of my books that I'm in, that I wrote some lessons in. He had me reading notation and playing and counting each rhythm according to what the rhythm was. So if it's like this, like these 4/8 notes in the beginning here, he would have me play them and say the rhythms 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and think the notes. And because drummers they only think about rhythm, whereas instrumentalists, we think about the notes and the rhythms, but I focus more on the notes and kind of like what's the word, kind of like didn't think about the rhythms and that level where I'm actually counting like a drummer would. So
Yeah,
that was really hip. So I'm really counting every time I play now. I'm trying to count while I'm playing
right.
exactly 1 2 4 1. Like whenever I'm taking a solo,
Sure.
and it's really I never thought of it like that, like a drummer would do it. Because
Yeah,
drummers, all they play is rhythm. You know.
right. They think a lot about rhythm, but they also think a lot about dynamics too, at least the good ones. Like they're always very
Oh yeah,
conscious
that's
of
a
their
yeah.
volume and where they sit within the
Yeah,
group
that's a good thing. That's
context.
a good point too. But they are doing only rhythm really too.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They're
yeah,
the rhythm
yeah.
field.
So there's some other questions here. Let me look on Instagram here real quick before I do my public service. Someone says drop low A. Yeah, so I play with the low A string. Santi likes bacon. I like all the names up here, man. Don't worry. But anyway, yeah, I do play with the low A. Oh, my friend, my student, uh, Jesse Hartstein is watching tonight. Hey, Jesse, on Instagram. How are you? I have one of my students here. There's a bunch of people from all over the country watching, so as well. So thank you for joining us, everybody. So that was a great question. And there's one more question here. What's this question? It says, Ron used to be a Perscope. Glad to see him back. I don't know what that means. Do you see that comment, Aaron? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
I think yeah.
So anyway, I want to do a public service announcement, and we're watching Mr. Aaron Shapiro tonight, my guest, and I'm going to put this on for you guys. Take a look at this for a second. Thanks for watching my podcast, Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson. Please follow me everywhere at Ron Jackson Music. Also, check out my website called www.ronjacksonmusic.com, and you can get cool merch like this. Take lessons with me. You're going to find the best cool things on the internet for jazz, guitar, 6 and 7 string. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope to see you in the next show. Yeah. Yeah. So Aaron, you want to play another song for us? I mean, I don't know how it's going to sound, but maybe you could play acoustic
Well,
play acoustic without the mic, with the mic, and turn it off. Actually,
sure. Yeah,
turn off the
I'll give that a
interface.
try. Yeah.
Try that.
Give me a moment to get set up here.
Okay. While you're doing that, why don't I play something then?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to mute myself. Mute yourself. Here we go.
Nice.
Oh my god! Of course, I haven't touched the guitar all day, but it's okay. So
Sounds
that
great.
was "With the Song in My Heart," one of my favorite. I actually recorded on one of my first albums back in my mid-20s on Muse Records, and so Aaron's gonna play a song for us. Thank you, Aaron,
Sure.
for being
I'm
on the
gonna
show.
tilt
We
the
really
mic.
appreciate you,
Oh,
man. Oh,
thanks for having me.
you're welcome.
I'm gonna tilt this mic down. Let me know if the sound is okay.
Okay, cool.
Good. Cool. So, real quick, I'm gonna play this song. It's called "Inspiration" by one of my favorite Brazilian composers, Garoto. Is that all right? Can you hear that?
Yeah, that was good. That was good. You know, we'll work more on the mic later, but it was much better the sound.
Cool.
Yeah, much better. Just using a regular mic, and we see some great. I see some great musicians watching everywhere. I see Pasquale Grassi. Grasso was watching right now, and Paul Piper, great musicians. I mean, Pasquale was amazing.
Yeah.
Pasquale, sorry, my friend Pasquale and Paul Piper, and there's a bunch of people watching that are on here on Instagram and other people. So we're watching. We're actually on interviewing my former student who's a professional. So what are you doing in Chicago right now, Mr. Aaron Shapiro? What are you doing in Chicago right now? What are you up to? What kind of
Yeah,
projects do you have going on?
sure. A bunch of stuff going on right now. Um, as far as gigs go, I play every Sunday. I'm at the Talbot Hotel, and that's like a duo, like a jazz duo series. Every Sunday, I have a different musician that I play with. Last week was this great guitarist, Andy Brown. We did
Oh, I
guitar
know him.
duos.
He's good.
Yeah, Andy's great. So um, that's been a lot of fun to have just like a weekly thing there. Uh, Next week, I'm playing at this club called the Hungry Brain in Chicago with a
Hungry Brain.
band. Yeah, it's a jazz club here on the north side of the city, and it's with a band called Radio Outer National. And we're going into the studio for three days, just like the day after that gig. We're spending 3 days in the studio making a record, and that's I don't want to say fusion necessarily, but it's like an instrumental kind of funk. It's like if you've I don't know if you've heard like any of like the '70s Yusef Lateef or Pharoah Sanders records, but it's kind of comes inspired by some of that stuff in a way. It's a lot of fun. It's a great band that I write a lot for. So we have a gig and then 3 days in the studio after that, which I'm excited for.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great having you on the show, and and talking about your career in music over there in Chicago since you left New York. When did you leave New York, actually?
I left in I think this it was the start of 2020,
Wow.
right? Because I moved there at the end of 2018 and left at the start of 2020, like March, February or March, kind of right when people realized what was going on with the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
Fusion is
someone.
not a dirty word. Just go with it. That's
Someone just said
well,
that.
I mean, I wanted to make clear it's not like I don't know, like Mahavishnu Orchestra or that stuff is great, but it's just the music's not like that. So no, fusion. There's some great fusion out there for
No,
sure.
no, I like all kinds of. I like all music actually. I mean, I come from the rock. I mean, I started playing rock. Everybody. So
Yeah,
so I mean, I love all music. I follow some of my favorite guitar players. A lot of these young guys like Matteo Mancuso and from Italy too, like Pasquale. He's an amazing guitar player too. There's some great guitar players from Italy actually. I love Steve Vai. He's Italian too. All these guys. Joe Satriani. I mean, I love all those rock guys. So I mean, I love everything. So I'm kind of open, but like a lot of jazz guys are. Some jazz guys are very, you know,
yeah,
in the box. But that's fine. You could be anything you want these days. You
sure.
know.
No,
But
I'm the same
so
as
so
you.
glad to have you on the show. So everybody, you can watch this podcast, and is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Aaron, at all? You know,
I don't know. I think that's about it. Unless you
we
see
had
any
some
other
interesting things
questions,
before we
then
even
yeah.
started talking. We started talking about one of the interesting things that we talked about. Everybody was like before we had the podcast today was about music notation and learning how to read, etc. You understand? Sorry, that's my phone.
Yeah,
You know what
all
I mean?
good.
And
Yeah.
what happened was you started. Did you ever learn how to read with tabs or anything? Aaron?
I did at some points. I think kind of when I first started to get into rock guitar playing, like I had a lot of those tab books that you would buy at music stores, and I studied with a few guys who wrote down tab. It actually, retrospectively, I think it confused me more because a lot of times people write just the numbers on the page without any rhythmic value attached to the numbers of the frets. So to this day, I think it's kind of harder for me to read tab than notation.
Yeah. So
Um,
for me, tabs. You
yeah.
have to know what the song sounds like to be able to play tabs.
Right, that's the other part of it too. You can't just, I mean, look at the page. It's pretty hard to look at a page and play it the music
No,
correctly
to
just
play
by seeing
musically
the tab.
with no rhythms or no, I mean, so
Right.
notation.
Sometimes they write tabs with rhythms above it, with like the like percussion type of notation rhythms above it, but that's confusing because you're trying to read both at once. Um,
Yeah, it's better
so
just to
I
learn the guitar neck, but it's hard to even do that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a really mixed bag. I've done some teaching recently, and some of these schools they actually like don't like they're just like actively, like unless a kid really wants to learn music notation, don't worry about teaching it to them. Just write out the tabs for them, which makes sense for a beginner, but as you get more serious into music and arranging for other instruments and leading a group and things like that, you got to know notation.
Yeah, I had a student, a really great. I don't want to say who it is, but I had a really great, talented student. Perfect pitch, everything. His father said, "Don't teach him notation." I was like,
Hmm.
"Really?" I mean, I was like, there's nothing wrong with learning how to read music, but the guitar's hard to read on, though. It's really hard to read.
It is
Yeah.
because you can play the same pitch level at multiple points on the guitar. Not just the same letter note, but like the same pitch at, 4, 5, or 6 different spots on the guitar sometimes. So it's like you finding out,
Each of
okay,
those
well,
pitches are actually have a different timbre because of the string
right, right,
string
exactly. It'll
thickness.
have a different tone, but you can play a lot of the same passages in multiple spots on the guitar. So it's kind of making this decision of where do you even go about playing this thing.
Yeah. Talking about guitar, everybody, I want to make a special quick public service announcement. I have a new article out in Acoustic Guitar Magazine. This August issue is about playing the blues and developing it into a jazz blues. So I take it through the tradition and go all the way until we do bebop blues, which is what we call bird blues. So check it out in the
Cool.
current issue of July of Acoustic Guitar, the July-August issue.
Nice.
Yeah, so thank you everybody. So let's thank Aaron for being on the show. Please watch this podcast and follow Aaron everywhere. You have you said you have some CDs out or anything?
Yeah, so I have on Bandcamp is the best way to find Bandcamp or YouTube. I have, a collection of I put out an album that's digital of classical guitar kind of standards, that type of repertoire. I have another one called Wondrous, which is myself and a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be a jazz instrumental record soon to come. But I also have some other records on the way with some bands that I'm playing in, The Eternals and Radio Outer National. All that stuff will be coming out soon. So, but yeah, my website's aaronshapiromusic.com, and that's where you can get at all that stuff through my
Yeah,
website.
I really want to. Yeah, I can't wait to hear you do a jazz album because you really play great jazz guitar too. So you
Appreciate
should
it.
definitely do one. I've been telling you.
It's in the work. It's
Yeah,
in the plan.
because you want to be Aaron Shapiro. That's what you want to
Yeah.
be. You know. And so, thank you everybody. So this is called Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson. I'm keeping tabs on all my former students. Well, so the people that appear on my show are people I've worked with, are former students or patrons on my Patreon. So, you can watch this over and over. There's a few episodes that came before me, before Aaron, and we have a lot of people that we're going to be interviewing soon. We have a young virtuoso that I'm teaching, who's 16, that we're going to have soon on the show. A bunch, he's a student of mine, actually, really great guitar player, up and coming. He plays all styles too. He plays 7 and 6 string too very well. Perfect pitch, everything. This guy. So be watch that. I'll tell you about him later. So be on the lookout for these other great musicians to be on the show. But show Aaron some love. Go please follow him. And
Cool. Yeah. Thanks
go
for
ahead.
having me, Ron.
Man, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
pleasure being on here. We could talk for another hour at least, I'm sure. But
Yeah, I'm sure.
this
But
was
I have
great
to
to catch
practice
up.
for a gig tomorrow. So
I
everybody,
do too.
I'll be playing myself. Um, I'm playing tomorrow in Central Park at a concert with TK Blue and a bunch of great jazz musicians from here. And then I have a lot of summer concerts all over New York City. Next week I'm going to be playing with St. Peter's Church, the Jazz Church, in collaboration with Grand Central Partnership with my jazz trio, featuring Steve Johns this time and Will Gorman on the organ, playing some new tunes off my album. I have a bunch of
Drummer
concerts.
Steve Johns.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
He's okay. That's the dad of my friend Daryl Johns. So.
Yeah, no, Daryl used to be one of my students.
Daryl's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Steve.
How do you know Daryl?
So I know Daryl through the Grammy Jazz Ensemble. He was a freshman and I was a senior.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
we've kind of kept in touch a little bit since then. But
yeah, he was one of
great
my
bass
students
player,
in the jazz
killer
program.
bass player. Yeah,
So, and I use his dad too sometimes.
his dad's a great drummer too.
Yeah, he's a great drummer. So
great.
he's been playing. He's been playing with me recently, and
Cool.
So come by if you want. Just look up my website, ronjacksonmusic.com. I'm going to play a public service announcement, and we're going to finish up the podcast. Thank you, Aaron. It was great having you, man. Great talking to you.
Thanks,
And,
Ron. Great catching up, man.
We'll see. When I get to Chicago, I've been to Chicago 3 times. I never saw you.
I've been working the nights that you're there in town. So
That's great, though. See, I'd rather
It is,
have you
but-
working than you come see me play. Actually,
We'll make it happen next time in town. You're in town, or vice versa. So
yeah, maybe we'll do something together when we go over there.
that'd be great, man.
Do a duo or a trio or whatever.
That'd be fun.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
So we'll say bye, everybody. I'm going to do this public service announcement, and have a great day, everybody. And thanks for watching Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson. Here we go. Thanks for watching my podcast, Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson. Please join my Patreon at patreon.com/Ron Jackson Music, and you'll get cool perks like picks, books, vinyls, CDs, and downloadable lessons. And you can even score a lesson if you join the new Patreon referral program, where you can earn a free half-hour lesson for referring somebody who joins my Patreon for a year, and also get a discount of 10%. And most of all, you can be on my show called Keeping Tabs with Ron Jackson, my new podcast. So join my Patreon, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you, and thanks for watching.